Hello everyone, it's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. So let me make sure I am up, make sure my sound hasn't gone down. Guys, if you like what I'm putting down and you enjoy the content, please feel free to subscribe. Ah, my sound went down, bastard. That's why I do this check. That's why I do this check. That is exactly why I do this check. And let me check something else to make sure this other thing works right. And perfect. At least I hope so. I hope everyone is doing okay today. It is 10:07 p.m. and I am up because someone, well, two things. My wife said, hey, check your Facebook page, and the DNC fraud lawsuit is still going on. The little engine that could is still going on. Jared and Elizabeth Beck, I think Nico House has something to do with it, but these guys, for the most part, it's still going on. The 11th Circuit Court has decried that he wants to hear oral argument. So, that's good news. Weird news. And I call this a bombshell because I'm just hearing about this. I read the book Shattered. This wasn't part of the book Shattered, but apparently it's an extension of the book Shattered that was added. As you know, the Sanders folks and the people who are on the left have not necessarily had the greatest relationship with the people who are on the right, the Clinton folks. The people who are vacant and for the most part are just organized around whatever the party wants. They don't necessarily have values in the same way that the Sanders folks have values. And I know that that's harsh to say, but let's be honest. They aggregate themselves around the party, and many of them don't even know what the party is doing. They think the country fell off of a cliff when Donald Trump took office, completely missing the hypocrisy that Donald Trump is just an extension of the previous president, meaning Obama. They don't understand how 30% of those people voted for Obama then became blistering racists 4 years later, 8 years later. Nevertheless, the relationship has been somewhat strained. Now, we on the Sanders side understand why the relationship was strained, because they wagged their finger at us. Why don't you vote for this woman? This woman is okay. This, how dare you say that there's a question about not voting? All this other nonsense, as if your vote was somehow automatically supposedly go to her. Nonsense. It's utter nonsense. You get a vote when you earn that vote. Nothing in between. And fact is, you shouldn't vote for somebody who doesn't deserve your vote. And that deserving is up to you to make the determination of whether or not they've earned your vote. Beyond that point, though, the Unity Commission. So there was understood that there was a division that was taking place in the party itself. You had the lefties who finally decided to grow a spine and started to get active and started to pull away from what the party establishment wanted, Hillary Clinton being this kind of last straw. And despite that, you still had a lot of these people who still bow their heads knowing full well that the person who they wanted was cheated, but they were so terrified of the other person that they still voted for Clinton. In fact, you had more people that ended up voting for Clinton, meaning for the Bernie-crats from a percentage standpoint, of Clintonites who voted for Obama. Interesting little stat. That being said, there was clearly a problem. This was not unity. You don't have a unity commission if you're already united. The whole point of having a unity commission is because you understand that 15 million people fled the burning boat that was your party. Tom Perez gets elected through dubious means. And by dubious means, I mean they broke their own bylaws in order to get Tom Perez elected. The favorite was Keith Ellison. Obama starts making calls in order to get Tom Perez into the race, in which case Tom Perez automatically jumps into one of the front runners. But ultimately, you see Tom Perez and Keith Ellison having a conversation one night, and the very next night, through dubious means, Tom Perez, breaking their own bylaws again, gets elected as head of the DNC. Tom Perez screams about unity, screams about values that nobody knows about. Mind you, this is the same guy who sent the email saying you should treat Bernie Sanders as a white candidate in order to make him radioactive to other minorities. That's that guy, the Hispanic that's alienated the white guy in the race. That's great. Tom Perez was giving instructions by Bill Clinton to not allow Sanders types to take the party. Tom Perez even though President Bill Clinton, previous former failure President Bill Clinton that passed one right-wing policy after the next, rapist Bill Clinton, I did not have sexual relations with that woman, who actually did have sexual relations with that woman, Bill Clinton. The semen stain on the dress, Bill Clinton, that the indignity of the president, that guy, is telling Tom Perez not to allow the Sanders types essentially leeway in the party. And Tom Perez, even though Bill Clinton doesn't really have any particular power at this point, Tom Perez follows that command, and Tom Perez starts purging Sanders supporters out the party, screaming at the exact same time that they're united. Take a look at this. The author of Shattered displayed this. I'm going to let this play from the beginning.
That often backfires. We've seen that on the Republican side some in the past, but that often backfires. We've seen that on the Republican side some in the past, but right now the Republican National Committee's doing a lot better in terms of its fundraising, in terms of its coordination. The DNC is unpopular with its own base. Half of the Democratic Party, or roughly half the Democratic Party, felt like the DNC was unfairly tipping the scales in the last presidential election, trying to get Hillary Clinton nominated, trying to hurt Bernie Sanders. So you start with that bad blood. And really, there's just been a clash between these two sides that has resumed. The hostilities that had been put aside at the Democratic Convention in 2016 resumed the minute that Donald Trump was elected. This huge battle for the soul of the Democratic Party between the Clinton-type folks and the Sanders folks. And Tom Perez is in the middle of that, and he's gotten very explicit instructions from President Clinton, as we write in the paperback extension of the original book. He's gotten instructions from Bill Clinton not to let the party go to the Bernie Sanders folks. That often.
Damn it. So you guys heard the video. So you heard the sound for the other thing, but you didn't hear the sound from me. I gave a rant with no sound. Spook stole your sound. That's fucked up. All right. What I was saying was, now that my sound is back on, I try to pay more attention to what you guys are saying because I don't like to go like an hour with no sound. I flip the sound back and forth when I do my videos. What I was saying was, and I'll pull this out so it's not necessarily in the feed when it goes back to the thing. Tom Perez gets orders from Hillary Clinton or from Bill Clinton to essentially not allow Sanders folks into the party, or at the very least to keep them from getting inroads into the party. Bill Clinton, rapist Bill Clinton, essentially the Bill Clinton that passed one right-wing policy after the next. The one that passed Glass-Steagall. Do you realize that it's part of the reason that Hillary Clinton lost was the policies that Bill Clinton passed, specifically NAFTA, especially in places like Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, those like places. He gut America. That guy. She lost to a reality show host. What Bill Clinton and what the Clintonites represent. She lost to reality show hosts. And despite losing to reality show hosts, in spite having the public essentially tell her no again, Tom Perez gets his marching orders from this failure on multiple accounts. Him, rapist, Bill Clinton. I did not have sexual relations with that woman, Bill Clinton. The indignity of the presidential semen stain being on a dress, Bill Clinton. That Bill Clinton is giving orders and commands to Tom Perez. And Tom Perez was stupid enough to follow those orders. Even though, on both counts, Bill Clinton was a failure as a president and his wife was a failure as a candidate. Tom Perez took those orders and started purging Bernie supporters. Think about that. He took what Bill Clinton said, and people who had been part of the party apparatus for a while, if they supported Sanders or if they supported Ellison, Tom Perez went about purging those people. Here's the thing. I've made this argument before about this kind of disposition of no. The solidarity of no. Realizing that the party is not that into you and the only thing they want from you is your vote. That's my disposition. In one case after the next, that's proving to be somewhat true. Bill Clinton, keep those Sanders supporters out of the party. Keep them out. Keep them out. They're not like us. Meaning there is a distinction between us and them. In this case, us being the Democratic corporatist class of the party. And the them being the people who trended more towards Sanders. And who, for whatever reason, albeit misguided, believes that there's some hope in saving that party. That party is just not that into you. So much so they're literally giving explicit instructions to keep you out. That's amazing. Let's see. Somebody. So that explains Perez's actions. When you watch him, his body language says, I don't want to be here. I don't want to be here. Then there's another one, no sound. Thank you very much. Joshua Renshaw, Spook stole your audio. No, that was just a fuck up. That was just a fuck up. That guy authored Shattered. That book is amazing. What he's talking about is an extra component of the book itself, like this kind of add-on. And just so we're clear, let's hear it again, just in case somebody got here late, because this is awesome. Come on.
And backfires. We've seen that on the Republican side some in the past, but right now the Republican National Committee's doing a lot better in terms of its fundraising, in terms of its coordination. The DNC is unpopular with its own base. Half of the Democratic Party, or roughly half the Democratic Party, felt like the DNC was unfairly tipping the scales in the last presidential election, trying to get Hillary Clinton nominated, trying to hurt Bernie Sanders. So you start with that bad blood. And really, there's just been a clash between these two sides that has resumed. The hostilities that had been put aside at the Democratic Convention in 2016 resumed the minute that Donald Trump was elected. This huge battle for the soul of the Democratic Party between the Clinton-type folks and the Sanders folks. And Tom Perez is in the middle of that, and he's gotten very explicit instructions from President Clinton, as we write in the paperback extension of the original book. He's gotten instructions from Bill Clinton not to let the party go to the Bernie Sanders folks.
And Tom Perez went along with it. Tell you everything about Tom Perez. Essentially, a rapist, sexual predator, impeached, disgraced president comes to you and says, hey, I know we just lost to reality show hosts. I know we just lost the House, Senate, Supreme Court, and probably the most easily won election that we can have taken place. I know that, we've fucked all of it up. But I have an idea. Don't allow it to go to them. I just keep making this point that there is a distinction between what the left considers itself and the party. Until that distinction is understood and people come into this thing of no. Like, let me say it this way. You have people like Zogby. And I think he's well-meaning. I think he's a nice guy. I don't necessarily know him from one person to the next. But Zogby was one of those people that was demoted in the Democratic Party. And yet, he still stays. And you can see him on Twitter crying and wailing about the Democratic Party being, unfair to him. And, oh, they're beating me up. Oh, they're bending my arm. Oh. And yet, hey, Zogby, you're a Democrat? Yes. Yes, I am. Why are you so excited about that when you're crying about that each and every night? And you find out through one situation after the next that they're not that into you. Not just not that into you, they just want your vote. They're not giving you any situation to get any real political power at all. Ultimately, they just want your vote. They're not that into you. Until you finally get to the point of saying, this is an uneven distribution of power in this relationship. I, for the most part, am like an abused spouse. And I stick around regardless of what they do to me, regardless of what they say to me, regardless of how they act towards me. I stick around because I am terrified of the other person. The fact that you're terrified of the other person allows this one to take advantage of you. Another situation, another data point. They're just not that into you. So, I'll leave this. I'm not going to keep this one long. Yes, I love that clip. Because that clip gets across everything that people... When people said, it looks like he's purging Sanders supporters or people who voted for Ellison and Sanders. No, you guys are just seeing what you want to see. Oh, okay, we're just seeing what we want to see. We're not seeing what we want to see. The people are not being spoiled losers, and we're not seeing what we want to see. Ultimately, every perception that the Sanders supporters has had during this entire process has been right. It's been right. And the entire time, these people have lied through their teeth constantly. We're united. We're united. Unity, unity. Remember that? We're united. There's nothing to see here. There's no cheating. This process is impartial. You guys are being sore losers. You're just being sore losers. There's nothing to see here. You guys need to get behind Hillary Clinton. She won the process fair and square. She has 2 million more votes. Was it rigged? No, it wasn't rigged. Yes, it was rigged. No. I didn't mean it that way. No, it wasn't rigged. These people have been liars through the entire process. So, I will leave it at that. Bill Clinton, ladies and gentlemen, when he's not jumping on any random woman that walks by, he's telling Tom Perez to keep Sanders supporters out of the DNC. I'll leave it at that. All right, guys. If you enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe, and of course, you can always support the Patreon. It's funny, every time there's a sound thing, I'm always embarrassed by that because I always feel like I look like an asshole doing the it's like you're moving and everything else and nobody can hear the sound. I'll fix that in editing the back end, but thank you guys for showing up. And who's this? Joshua Rinsaw, Sir Bike Salad today. Both of you, thank you very much. Thank you for notifying me that I didn't have sound. That's the first part. And Joshua, thank you for being kind enough to not think it was my own fuck up and think Spook stole my sound. I appreciate that like nobody's business. So, both of you, thanks a lot. All right, guys. You all have a good night.